Hi everybody, Michael here from BizBudge. I'm doing a series of videos on how to create a budget using different software tools. The first video is this one, which is going to show you how to create a simple budget in Excel from nothing. Now this can apply to a business budget or a household budget. Always a good idea to create a budget in order to financially plan what is going to happen in your future, so that you can work out how much money is coming into your business or household, household, and how much is going out in the form of expenses. It is a very important task, often neglected. The idea of the series is for you to be able to see the different types of tools available and what may be appropriate for you. Sometimes people use things that are over-engineered, and at other times you're outgrowing where you're at, so you can kind of gauge where you are on the scale. Anywho, let's crack right into it. So I'm going to get rid of this fancy text I've got here, and we're going to start writing the budget. So the first thing we want is a title and then perhaps a year. Now it can be a financial year or a calendar year. If I do a financial year, I'll write the months of the year starting in the top row, or so the third row here, and drag that right across all the columns to the end of the financial year. In Australia, the financial year is July to June. If you're doing a household, you might want that to be from January to December. And in other parts of the world, it might be your financial year if you're a business. Or if you're a household, you can choose whatever months you like. That should typically be the upcoming 12 months, not the months necessarily that you've entered into, but it can be. And we will go into more advanced types of budgeting, including actuals in future series. However, so we're going to have the 12 months, which is typically a good time period to be budgeting on because it makes more sense and is a little bit more current. Then we're going to have a total at the end. We might even put one out year. A lot of businesses have an out year, which is the first year after the current year, just as a full year. Now, some businesses typically do multiple out years just to get a gauge of where they're going to be at on a high level. Now, once I've got the months in there, what we're actually going to create here is a typical profit and loss statement or income statement, which is a very handy way of putting the revenue items at the top part and the expense at the bottom so you can see your net balance. So what we'd normally put in is the types of things at the top that are revenue or income items. So if you're a business, that'll be things like sales or interest. If you're a household, and this is going to be a quasi budget of household and business, you might put wages and salary in there. We'll stretch that column out a little bit. Then you might also have things like rental income. You've got another property or something. Typically, that probably will do as an example. I just want to set an example here. This isn't the be-all and end-all, and you can certainly add different items to yours. But what we would typically, not that many items of revenue, unfortunately, for most people. What we have at the end of that, though, we'd want to put a total of revenue underneath that final revenue item. Then we want to start on the expense items. And they are the sorts of things you're spending money on, like cars, buildings, insurance. What else we spend money on? If you're a business, you spend it on staff, entertainment. Yeah, always need to be entertained. And then how about something like depreciation? Yeah, it's a real accounting type thing. They like to wiggle things around using that one. Then we'll have a total expenses, similarly to doing the total revenue, so we can see what we're spending. Again, with the revenue, we're kind of filling the cup up, and then with expenses, we're drinking from the cup. So we want to see how much we've got there to drink and how far down we're drinking. Then we'll have a net profit or loss at the bottom. Now that's going to show us where we sit after we've spent all of our money that we've earned. So the total revenue, what we're going to put is a formula in here now, and this is a good thing about Excel, is it's quite flexible. You can do things however you like, which is a good and a bad thing. It means you need to know what you're doing, and the purpose of these videos is to try and help you with that, as well as how to do it. So if we drag that formula across, we'll get the total. This will actually sum all of our revenue items, and we'll do the same for expenses. We're just going to sum all the expense lines up until our total revenue, and then we can drag that across. Now, the good thing, again, this is why Excel's a handy tool. We can now put in our net profit or loss will be our total revenue minus our total expenses. And again, if we drag that across, what you'll find is then now this will give us our what's called the bottom line, which is how much we have left in our cup, if I can continue to use that excellent analogy. Now, on the total row, we want to sum the row. So all the months, we're going to scroll right across there. or drag right across, I should say, and then we can drag that formula down and it will add up all of the totals for the year for each of our items. Now, these items can be a summary, a sum of different items underneath them, or one particular item. So, for example, you might want to be a bit more detailed and say not just sales, but sales of particular items, or not just wages and salary, but wage one and wage two if you're a household. But again, we'll move on to that in the more advanced types of budgeting. So what we can start doing now, again, we've typically built a profit and loss statement here. We can start to build out the detail within this. So we might start putting in what we expect. And again, a budget is what you expect to happen for the year, or your plan for the year. So we might put in a general gist, the general idea of what we might actually be earning in sales. It's better to be conservative with income and underestimate, and with expenses it's probably a better rule to overestimate, so that there's less chance that you're going to get caught out. Now, you can have like a fixed amount all the way along there, as I've done, but you can change particular months. So for example, December's the festive season and we might have more income, and in January everyone's on holidays, so we're having less income, less sales. So we can adjust those numbers. That's the good thing about Excel. We can adjust those numbers as we please. What we're starting to see here now, as you can tell, is that we're summing also our total revenue amount. So if we're about to put in, and again you can sporadically put in, you don't have to fix in amounts. You want to put it where it's realistic, because again, this plan needs to be as realistic as possible. So where you think amounts will occur or values will occur. So you can see here our total revenue is starting to build now, as well as that net profit and loss line. Because we've only got income so far, we're only seeing a positive value. But as we start to enter expenses, you'll see a difference there. Now, I'm going to highlight all the cells that are important so that we can actually bold those. That makes them stand out a bit more. And what I might also do is select some of these total numbers and make them a little bit more easy to read by adding in a comma, and we'll remove those zeros because sense, well, it makes sense. You get it? Okay, then wages and salary, that's another item of income. If we're a household, we might put in what our wage or salary is expected to be. Again, that's probably typically fairly standard, but then in December, we again might be working our tushies off, so we earn a bit more then, but then in January we're taking a holiday, so yep, we better reduce that a bit. We've still got to pay us a little bit of money for holiday pay, but yep, that's reduced that a bit. So you can see again here, we're building a total revenue, and we've also got our net profit and loss line, which is for the total for our year, for our revenue is shown here, and our total overall is also shown down the bottom there. Now, what we would then essentially do, again, this doesn't necessarily have to be realistic, it's just an example. Then what we would start to do is enter in all the costs that we will be incurring throughout the year. So we might put fuel in for our car, that's $80 a month. Then we might have registration due on 1 month, so we'll add that in. Insurance might be in this month. So you can see we're going to start building the detail of our expenses. And again, this is just cars. It's not broken up into any detail. It's supposed to be just a very simple example of how this would be. You can add more detail if you like by adding in new lines. Then for buildings, that might be your rent or your mortgage payments. Or it might be, if you own a building, it might be expenses for that. Your landlord might want some extra money in December if they're allowed to do that, charge you a bit extra. So you can kind of add those values in. And what you can start to see is we're now building up our value of costings, which is being taken away from our income to give us the net profit or loss. So we want that to generally stay positive. So insurances, you might have your house insurance there. You might have your pet insurance, the poor little dears. We've got to look after them as well. You might have some other, we all pay a lot of insurances, don't we, these days? Then staff, you might have some staff working for you. So you want to put their costs in as well, and they're pretty standard, but in December they work a bit harder, and then we don't use them as much in January. And then we want to go on a holiday in January. That's our holiday, so we want to pay for that. So you can start to see here, and then another one in September. Why not, hey? You're starting to build our financial picture here. And again, this is to be as realistic as possible. What we're also showing here is there are some negatives here, which means they're the months where we're spending more than we're earning. Very important. Now, to make this again a bit more visible, there are some nice things in Excel, such as conditional formatting. We can add in a rule so that, for example, if the value is greater than 0, we'll make it green, because all the psychologists say that green's a nice color and it makes things more happy. Then if we're less than 0, boo, we want to fill it in with red. Now, doesn't that make it a bit more clear? Here you can see now where we go over or under. So you can start to build more of a picture and see more easily where things are at. Now, what I'm going to do, and again, the idea is then to say, look at this and say, well, hey, I'm spending a bit too much here. Maybe we shouldn't have that holiday here. We might move that into a month down the track here. Or again, it might be another, and give us a chance to save the money. Because again, we have got positive months here, which allow us to save. And again, the net figure is positive, but we want to see which months we need to prepare for. Now I'm going to zoom back out again, so that we can actually add a chart in here, because this is another cool thing we can do easily with Excel. We can add a chart in. So if we're in our table here, we can actually insert a chart, which will then run off the values that we've got there. Now, if I move my, Excel has done a lovely thing for us here and it's put in a chart for us using the numbers we've got. But we actually want to, it doesn't really make a great deal of sense because it's included our totals as well. So that kind of skews the numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to change the data we've got selected, remove all those ones in there, because we actually want to start again and select our data. And we'd probably be more interested in just seeing revenue or expenses so we can adjust, because they're the items that we can directly impact. So we want to compare all of our expense items, for example, in a chart, because then it's more visual. Now, it's given us the numbers here for months. So if we want to choose that horizontal axis, we can actually select the months on that horizontal axis there, And then look at our chart there. Wow, kablamo. And you can see the big lines. Whoa, they're the really juicy expenses. So we can kind of get a quick view as to how that works. Oh, we forgot to fill in our out year. Now, our out year could be just equals, and I've just put an equal sign in there. I should zoom in a bit because otherwise it's a bit hard to see, isn't it? We can actually put our expenses, I've got a formula going there, equals our total for the previous year multiplied by, equals a total multiplied by, and we put a number up here where we're going to have, oh, this is a bit fancy too. I'm going to use a fancier formula here now so it doesn't move from that cell. I'll add the dollar signs in, drag that down. So if we say we want our expenses to increase by 1.05, that will actually give us another 5% increase from the previous year, assuming inflation and extra costs and those sorts of things. I'll just zoom in on that so you can see that a bit better. So again, that's another little fancy thing we can add into. The idea of this was to be a very basic introduction, so you can see now you can adjust things that happen. If you need to add, the good thing about Excel is if you need to add a new line in, you can just go insert in there, say, oh, we forgot to put taxes in, very important. So we're going to pay a tax bill here. We need to be able to account for that. The good thing about Excel is you can include those things and it will automatically, you can see how it automatically added that in to our line. Now, the only thing we need to do is drag these ones down, of course. And unfortunately, I don't think it would have included that on our chart. No, it hasn't. So we now need to select the data again, and we've dodged the tax there. Oh, sorry about that pun. So we actually want to add in that, or we can remove the existing ones and then just reselect that again, add our new costs in there. And same with our horizontal axis, add that back in. But that's quite easy to do. And then now you can see we're going to have our tax values in there. So again, very simple introduction. This sheet's going to be available on the website if you'd like to have a copy of it to use for your own benefit. Otherwise, we're going to have the next one coming up soon, which will go a little bit more